Hi, everybody. Oh, Mr. White has already left us all a greeting. Good evening. Hello, Mr. White. Hold on, I just have a couple. I have so many things to talk about and to show you tonight. Just have to make sure I have everything in order and ready to go. Have a really good time again tonight, I hope. Thank you for joining me. And I'll wait a couple of minutes for more people to join up, for whoever's coming in to join us on Facebook and YouTube. Please feel free to say hello in the comments so I know who's here. We have our, regular group usually comes wandering in the first 4 or 5 minutes. So I'm looking forward to seeing everyone tonight. See, we have a few people here and there joining us. Mr. Davis is here. Who else is here? We have Miss Wyman is here. She says, hello, hope you're having a good night. I am having a good night. It is a little cold, so I have on this little blanket tonight because it is a bit cold. Um, my background looks like it's nice and sunny and summery, and I apologize for that. As you know, I was looking for backgrounds. I picked this one today, not even thinking about that I needed a darker, wintry background. So it looks like summer behind me, but it's really not. And we are going to be talking about December 4th, 1775. So just pretend that snow out there, that white, glow is from the snow. My dog Rex is here. He says it's 72 degrees. He's on the patio. And John the Beagle Dad is here. And Sparrowhawk is here. Good evening to you too, sir. It's good to see you tonight. So great to see everyone. It is very cold. And if it was December 4th, 1775, in Hanover Square, New York, which we would like to think it is, it would be extremely cold, right? Because the weather at that time was very, very cold, coming off of a mini ice age. Mrs. Healy is here. Hello, Mrs. Healy. Coming off of a mini ice age. So it was extremely cold during the Revolutionary War period. Now, from now through however long on our weekly time together, I am going to try to stick to America 250 and be talking about what was going on that date 250 years ago. Who else is here? Oh, Miss Kane is here. Hello, Miss Kane. It's nice to see you too. So I'm going to try to stick with 250 years ago. But before I get to December 4th, 1775, I just do want to say that, of course, Mrs. Q tonight won't know this, but 7 years in the future, on December 4th, 1783, General Washington will give his farewell address at the Francis Tavern in the long room to his assembled officers. Some of you might have seen I reposted an old reel that I did a few years ago. Excuse me, while I was still living in New York, I just wandered over to the long room and did a little reel about Washington's farewell address. So you can check that out. I think I put it on Facebook and my Patreon. And that is one of the free posts on Patreon. So you don't need to be a financial supporter to see that. You can just go over to my Patreon, Mrs. Q History, and check that out. And hopefully you'll see a lot of things there you like and you'll subscribe and support my work. That would be a really great thing to do. But in the meantime, you can support my work just by giving a thumbs up on this video, subscribing to my channel, and sharing it with whoever you think would be interested in learning more about America 250 as we go through the dates exactly 250 years ago. I thought that would be a really fun thing to do because, everybody just thinks about the Declaration of Independence, and there's a lot more going on, right? December 4th, 1775, the Arnold expedition is on its way to Quebec, right? Major General Montgomery has been successful at Montreal, and they're all now moving on for an attack on Quebec, which is a really brutal journey. And I think we'll talk about that next week. We'll talk about what's going on with that. See what else I wanted to thank all of you who either here last week for my Thanksgiving, where you got to see my 21st century self, or on social media have given me your opinions about whether I should write a straight historical book about New York during the Revolutionary War or a historical fiction. And I really appreciate all of the incredible input I got from everybody. So a lot of you said things that I never thought of myself about different points of view and stuff. But I do want to tell you that if I do a historical fiction, that the main character may not be quite what you expect. And I'll only say that this character, of course, will have to be a woman because I can't write, about a man's life. So I have to write about a woman's life. I've lived my whole life here as a woman, so I have to write from about a woman. It will not be in the first person, so people who were worried about it being in the first person, so the characters in every scene, it's not going to be like that. And I will tell you that she may be a little different from what you might expect from historical fiction of that time period. You may find her to be very calculated and strategic, and you may not be so fond of some of the choices she makes in her life. So very interesting character, very different from most of the women who appear in, colonial historical fiction. So I'm working on putting that person together in my mind and what she'll be doing. So tonight is December 4th, 1775. Thank you for joining me in my home in Hanover Square. It is a very cold winter night, so I have on, an extra blanket over my chemise and my bed jacket and my blanket. I have my bonnet on over my hair, and I do have my big wig on under here to prop it up, to puff it up the way it's supposed to look. And I'm happy to see everyone. My dog Rick says he's currently reading John Dickinson. Um, and he says, everybody please hit the like button, fellow history students. And my good friend, Mr. Robbins is here. Hello, Mr. Robbins. Mr. Telek is here. Did I put a couple of extra logs on the fireplace? I believe Mr. Q did that downstairs. So it is a little chilly up here, although hopefully he'll be adding those logs to the bedroom fireplace when we retire to our bedroom later this evening. He is, of course, downstairs with our dog, and I think he's reading or whatever Mr. Q is up to when I'm doing my show here. So December 4th, 1775, and I would like to speak to you about, I don't like this fringy thing here. Hold on, there, that's much better. And I would like to speak to you about an event that occurred a little more than a week ago, having to do with the printer, James Rivington. Who is this? Dora Saxon, 5131. Greetings, Mrs. Q. Knight's Code of Honor. Lord Jesus, have mercy upon me and my soul, for I am a sinner. Amen. Merry Christmas to the entire Q family. Thank you very much for the Christmas wishes. Just to diverge a little bit here, this weekend, if you are in the Poconos, northeastern Pennsylvania area for Christmas, I will be portraying a character from 1825 in the Wyoming Valley here. Her name was Mrs. Shoemaker. She was the daughter of Colonel Nathan Dennison, who was a colonel in the Revolutionary War, and we will be at the historic Swetland House or Swetland Manor, Swetland Homestead on Wyoming Avenue, Saturday and Sunday from 1 to 4. And you can come in. There are 3 of us who will be playing historical characters from 1825, and you can come in and hear all about the fascinating life of Mrs. Elizabeth Dennison Shoemaker, or Betsy, as her friends called her. And I will be portraying her on Saturday. A little bit out of my normal time period, but I played her last year as well, and be lots of fun. So if you're in the area, please come over, support the Luzerne County Historical Society by attending and checking out Christmas in 1825. There are also a lot of other things that will be going on the property. So back to my favorite thing, the American Revolution. So it's December 4th, 1775. And I would like to address an incident that occurred last week concerning the printer James Rivington, who you might know from his New York Gazetteer, a very prominent newspaper here in New York. And I have to say that I am not an eyewitness to this event. It has been told to me secondhand, by other people, or from what I have read in the various newspaper accounts and letters between people. So I cannot tell you that I witnessed this with my own eyes. Tom Carl, hi, I work in a grocery store on Montague Street in Brooklyn Heights. Our basement is ancient. Oh my goodness, Brooklyn Heights. Well, you can wave across the East River to me at Hanover Square from Brooklyn Heights. So I did not witness this because I, at the time, was at Murray's Wharf, going through one of the ships, trying to find boxes of goods that I have been waiting for the longest time. As you may know, we are in the midst of another non-importation, non-exportation, non-consumption agreement, otherwise avoiding all things coming into our colonies from England or on English ships. As a result of that, goods that I have been waiting for, some luxury goods for the ladies who shop in my store, I've been waiting to come from Milan for quite a long time, and they have come from Milan via Spain into the Caribbean and then expecting them on a ship from the Caribbean. And I was busy trying to find out if my product had arrived in the port of New York. As you can imagine, with what's going on with England and the military and the fighting in Boston, it's very difficult to get anything, much less getting goods from Europe. And Mr. Q tells me that I'm out of my mind anyway, because who in these conditions is going to be buying luxury goods at this time? But I've already paid for them and I would like to have them so that at some point I can still sell them to the ladies who come into my shop. Therefore, I was not in Hanover Square when this event occurred, although I did hear some of it from Murray's Wharf. So this is what happened. Our story tonight is going to be about two printers, Mr. James Rivington and Mr. John Holtz. And they are just down the street from here, and they are, excuse me, here they are. Here's our two gentlemen we'll be talking about tonight. Mr. Holt on the top, Mr. Rivington on the bottom. Mr. Holt prints the New York Journal or General Advertiser. Mr. Rivington prints the New York Gazetteer. And before all of the difficulties started with England, both newspapers were very widely distributed, very well read, very well respected, and covered, all sorts of things happening here in America, things happening in England, things happening in Europe or the Caribbean or whatever points of interest there might be. But as things started developing, tensions started developing from the Stamp Act and then the Quartering Act and most recently the Tea Act, the two newspapers have diverged greatly in their point of view of what side people should be taking. And we can tell right away from the mastheads of the two newspapers who is on which side of the debate. On the top, we have Mr. Rivington's New York Gazetteer and Weekly Advertiser with, you see, the arms of the crown, the English crown. Underneath, we have Mr. Holt's New York Journal or General Advertiser with Unite or Die in the masthead. And Mr. Holt just switched to this masthead last year. So he's been using it a little bit more than a year, maybe a year and a half he's been using it. So Mr. Holt, Unite or Die, you may have seen this. This was originally drawn by Mr. Franklin many, many years ago. I believe during the Stamp Act, perhaps even before that, maybe even during the Sugar Act, to encourage the colonies to unite in opposition to English parliamentary edicts on the colonies, things being passed in Parliament. And it never worked. But the idea is that if the colonies were to unite, we would be as deadly as this rattlesnake, the American timber rattlesnake. And if not, we would die like those cut up segments. This just had no popularity for many years, but about a year ago became very popular. Mr. Holt put it on the masthead of his newspaper, and you can see right away which side he is on. So some people refer to Mr. Holt as the Liberty printer of New York, or the Rebel printer, or the Patriot printer, and refer to Mr. Rivington as the Loyal printer of New York, or Loyalist printer. So Mr. Rivington's point of view is going to favor England and the Crown and the Royal Governor, and Mr. Holt's point of view will much more often favor the rebels here in the city of New York. And they will print content from each side refuting the other side. And this is something we've been used to. Oh my goodness, I think Mr. Rivington and Mr. Holt have been lobbying, shall we say, insults at each other for more than a year. And we in New York just consider this part of our natural free press and free expression and free printers that operate. Let me just also remind you, these are not the only two newspapers in New York. There are others, and they also range from being supporters of the rebels to supporters of the crown to going back and forth or being more moderate in their views. But tonight we're only going to talk about these two printers because what happened to Mr. Rivington last week as a direct result of the conflict that has been going on between these two gentlemen for more than a year. We have Mr. Barnes says, good evening. I hope you'll do a Christmas show about 1770s. Well, Mr. Q just informed me today that Christmas will be on a Thursday this year. So I hope you'll be able to join me. I will be here Christmas night, Thursday night, and I hope you'll be joining me. And I also will be part of a live celebration, New Year's Eve, and I'll tell you more about that as that is coming up. That's not going to be my show, but someone else's. I'll tell you about that, and I'll be here New Year's night as well. So every Thursday, I will be here unless I'm otherwise engaged. Um, Tom Carl says, we Americans kneel to no king but the King of Heaven. Absolutely, sir. Jose to you for understanding that. And there goes my camera, which goes slightly out of focus now, and then it annoys me very, very much when it does that. Um, you know what? I just dislike doing this during a live stream, but I am going to very quickly just stop my video and start it back up in the hopes my camera will refocus. There it goes. I had an old camera, and my new camera doesn't operate as well as my old camera did, so it is very, very annoying. So we have the two newspapers, and what happened to Mr. Rivington is a direct result of their conflict, which has been raging for more than a year at this time. And what's interesting is the two gentlemen are also right across the street from each other. So Mr. Rivington's print shop is on one side, and Mr. Holt's print shop is on the other side. Everyone knows them, everyone goes back and forth, and most people read both of their newspapers. Oh, Miss Campo is here. Hello, Miss Campo. Thank you very much for joining us tonight. So most people read both of their newspapers. I know that we do. I think everyone does, just to keep up with the current debate about what's going on in New York. So we have these two gentlemen who have been debating now for more than a year, since pretty much the time of the Boston Tea Party, as it has become known, and the outrages perpetrated by the Crown on the city of Boston, about which they diverge in their opinions. Now, who do I want to start with? So I'm going to start with, I want to tell you about, I don't want to get to that yet. So I have here, I'm going to just read to you some of the letters that were appearing in Mr. Rivington's newspaper about the free press. And someone wrote to him, and this is a year ago, August a year ago in 1774, to give you an idea of how this whole thing began. Mr. Rivington published a letter, and this gentleman says, I was led into these reflections. Hold on, I might want to start a little earlier. He's talking about how the free press, the writer is talking about how the free press is so very important when it comes to informing people and them forming their opinions. And he says that a newspaper wholly employed in prosecuting party, designs, inflames the minds of the people against the government, and by means to introduce anarchy and confusion. The printer of such a paper justly renders himself abhorrent to all good men, and may well be considered as a pest to society. I was led into these reflections upon the perusal of some of the late New York journals printed by John Holt. And he goes on to say that John Holt is engaging in a flagrant perversion of such an inestimable privilege, the privilege of being a printer. So he says it is a receptacle for every inflammatory piece that is published throughout the continent. So this is how this gets started, with letters such as the one I just read you. And of course, Mr. Holtz, his supporters, will respond in his newspaper to this writer, saying that this writer is against freedom, that he's a tool of, of the crown, that he's nothing but a lazy loyalist who depends on the government and is too cowardly to stand for his freedom. Oh, someone asked, is it Jose or Huzzah? This is an interesting question that you've asked, because in New York, it was traditional to say Jose. And I think that is throughout the colonies the correct pronunciation, although over the years it has become Huzzah. Mr. Facemeyer is here from Manassas. So I do believe Jose is the correct pronunciation. Becoming hooray a little bit later on. So I think the etymology of hooray goes back to Jose. And then I don't remember where it came from, but I used to know where that came from as well. My memory is not as good as it once was. If you took one of my tours 15 years ago, my memory was much better than it is now. So I'm doing my best to keep up with all of this knowledge. So letters like this began to inflame the situation, with Mr. Holt's paper then firing back at Mr. Rivington's paper. And we have this going back and forth for over a year. And then we have one, Mr. Rivington. As much has been said, both in the English and American papers, respecting the freedom of the press and how far that palladium of liberty ought to extend, I expect you will find room for the following in your gazetteer. And again, another letter indicting John Holt for turning people against the government, being seditious, starting rebellion, and back and forth and back and forth. And I have, a whole bunch of these here going back and forth over the months. And eventually, we see Mr. Rivington publishing this to Mr. Holt. And he says, Mr. Rivington, let me move it over here where I can read it better. Mr. Rivington, so this would be August of 1774, last year, right in the midst of all of this. Mr. Rivington says, before I exercise my right of calling upon you for the name of the author whose illiberal invective appeared in your yesterday's paper, I intend to publish some remarks that occurred to me on reading that extraordinary production. As I would be entirely uninfluenced by any personal considerations in the remarks I intend to publish, the reasons of suspending my inquiry may easily be conceived. Meanwhile, I would just hint to you that I do not think your publishing such an abusive piece of scurrility against me is justified either by the nature of the printing business or any part of my conduct toward you. On the contrary, I have refused to publish several things merely because they contain reflections upon you, though much less exceptional than these against your humble servant, John Holt. So we have Mr. Holt saying, why, Mr. Rivington, I would like to know who wrote that scurrilous piece you published about me. But before I get to that, I would like to let you know that I have received things to be published in my paper much worse about you, yet I have refrained from doing so. So you can see how a year ago already tempers had flared so badly about this. Well, the Sons of Liberty got so angry at Mr. Rivington for some of the things Rivington was saying about them that they went to New Jersey and they hanged an effigy of Mr. Rivington from a tree and celebrated his hanging in effigy. And Mr. Rivington printed this in his paper with an engraving of his effigy hanging in the tree. Let me ask, do you know how difficult and expensive something like this would be, as Mr. Rivington had to hire an engraver to engrave this plate so he could use it to print the picture in his paper. So this is a great difficulty and expense to Mr. Rivington to do this. Oh, here's somebody, this is Mr. Tom Carl is talking about his family in your time being working for a printer bound at Houston and Barrack Street in New York City, but that's far in the future for us. But thank you for sharing that with us. The printing business is, quite, well, I hope in your time it's still a noble and respectable business, although it's looking here that it's not so noble and respectable, is it? And I would like to read to you some of what Mr. Rivington says in this. Let me find it in this article, because this article is going to start a whole series of events. Excuse me, I thought I had this ready to read to you, but I can find it really quickly. Because amazingly, I do know where everything is in my research. So he titles the picture up there. He says, last Thursday was hung up by some of the lower class of inhabitants, so low lives, right, at New Brunswick, an effigy representing the person of Mr. Rivington, the printer at New York, merely for acting consistent with his profession as a free printer. So what's he getting to here? He's saying, all I'm doing is working as a free printer, and look what these people did. And he says the printer has been informed that a number of bacchanalians at Brunswick, if you don't know what bacchanalians are, they are naked nature worshipers at Brunswick, flushed with the inebriating draughts of the, not of the juice of the vine, but New England rum. So he says they're bacchanalians and they're drunk on cheap rum, not on respectable wine, have sacrificed him to the idol of licentiousness. And he goes on to talk about how they're idiots, drunks, fools, and he even calls them pediculous, which is lice infested. The article is a masterpiece of satire and insult. A wonderful piece. And he printed this. And for this, he got a visit to his shop, where a number of Sons of Liberty went to his shop looking for him. Mr. Rivington either got a tip off or saw them coming, and he ran and hid in the chimney, where he stayed while they rummaged through his shop. They couldn't find him. Eventually, they tried to get him out of the chimney, so he says, and they couldn't reach him, and he stayed in the chimney. He then said he was stuck in the chimney for a number of hours, yelling for help until one of the neighbors heard him and came over and assisted him from getting out of his chimney. So at least on that attempt, Mr. Rivington successfully escaped any harm. But out of fear, he went out and spent some time, not sure how long, on a ship in the harbor called the Kingfisher. So he and his family removed themselves to a ship where they lived under the Crown's protection until they received a guarantee from the New York Provincial Congress and the Common Council that they would no longer be harmed. And Mr. Rivington moved back to his shop and he went back to work until last week. And we have last week, as I said, I was not there, but I have a number of firsthand accounts of what happened there. So this is November 25th, 1775. This is printed, and it says, Thursday morning, the 23rd instant, about 12 o'clock, a party of light horse from Connecticut, is that interesting, amounting to about 100 entered this city and in the utmost regularity proceeded to the house of Mr. James Rivington, printer, and after surrounding the same with bayonets fixed, a number alighted and placed 3 sentinels at each door. When a few of the party entered the house and demanded his types, which were accordingly surrendered and put up in bags, then they destroyed the whole apparatus of the press. The business being thus finished without the least noise or opposition, the surrounding spectators, consisting of about 1,500 inhabitants, signified their approbation by 3 huzzas, and immediately the party went out of town with their booty without offering the least insult to any of the inhabitants. And we have many, many accounts of this incident. Now, why would we have so many accounts? Well, this is a big story. This is a serious incident. Let's go back to our normal. Because we have a group of gentlemen from a neighboring colony arm themselves, come into New York, and harass our printer, Mr. Rivington. Not only harass him, but steal his typeset and destroy his printing press. On the way, they went to Westchester, where they kidnapped 3 men, one of them including Mr. Samuel Seabury of Westchester, right? From the Pastor Seabury of the Anglican Church of Westchester. What do Seabury and Rivington have in common? Well, it was Mr. Rivington who printed Mr. Seabury's pamphlets critical of the non-importation, non-exportation agreement and critical of the Congress itself. As a result, they picked up all of the men, brought them to Connecticut. The men were from Westchester, brought them to Connecticut, where they locked them up in Connecticut, then proceeded into New York, where they disturbed a resident of our city. The leader of this group was from New York. He was one of the leaders of the Sons of Liberty, Mr. Isaac Sears, a known troublemaker and instigator of all sorts of acts of humiliation and violence upon some of the loyalists in our city. So I ask you, what do you think? Do you think it's appropriate, because you disagree with what a printer is printing, to barge into a neighboring town because the townspeople won't support your actions? Mr. Sears could not get the support of the local Sons of Liberty to do this. He could not. The Sons of Liberty here have divided over Mr. Sears, and he does not have the support that he once had. Instead, he went to Connecticut, where he found a group of more radical men willing to come into our town and do this. Do you think that is acceptable, that Mr. Rivington should be prevented from printing anything simply because people disagree with it? Here we have gentlemen who are talking about separating from England to secure our rights and liberties, while at the same time destroying the rights and liberties, first of Mr. Rivington to print, but also of the people to read what he has to say. Needless to say, this has become controversial throughout the colonies and at our Continental Congress as well. So first, the Common Council in New York wrote to the Provincial Congress, and Mr. Nathaniel Woodhull, the current president of the Provincial Congress, then wrote to our delegation in Congress, to Mr. Jay, and the Congress then wrote to Connecticut, admonishing Connecticut and everyone, just about, regardless of which side of the issue they're on concerning England, was outraged at this type of violent, unexpected behavior. So I wonder what you all think about this, because it seems that even people who talk about freedom to speak, to gather, to listen, often don't believe their opponents ought to have those freedoms. And so when we meet someone who espouses freedom or liberty like this, the liberty to speak and to be heard, yet they prevent someone from speaking and being heard, why would they do that? Is it because they think their argument is weak and they can't debate someone from the other side? I mean, I don't see why that would be the case with Mr. Rivington, because there are plenty of gentlemen in New York very skillfully debating the people printing in Rivington's newspaper, one of them being the person, whoever he is, called the Monitor, who is publishing every week in Mr. Holt's newspaper, who is very eloquent and very convincing about reasons that we should join up as a confederacy of new colonies or states and join up and fight England. He's doing a very good job of refuting the gentleman in Mr. Rivington's newspaper. So I don't think there's any fear that the Crown's argument cannot be overcome. Or is it just, I don't know, is it just criminality? Is it just that some people just enjoy terrorizing others? Is it what we might call an act of terror against Mr. Rivington, and an act to prohibit others from perhaps supporting the Crown's point of view? I don't see any reason to stop anyone from printing the Crown's point of view. I think there are many people who can very successfully argue against the Crown's point of view. I'm just a lady, but I can do so. And I know any number of ladies who can do so quite effectively. So I don't think it's to just stop Mr. Rivington. I think it's to stop everyone and to terrorize them into no longer printing anything critical about the Sons of Liberty. And you all know, Mr. Q and I consider ourselves to be Whigs. We support the Continental Congress. We support a move to be independent from England. We support all of that. People call us rebels, people call us traitors, or called all sorts of things for that. And I don't support stopping the other side from speaking. I think it's perfectly all right for them to speak and to say whatever they'd like to say, because I have complete faith that we can explain to people why they should not accept what the other side has to say and why what we are offering and that our thoughts about our future are more advantageous to them than the Crown's thoughts about our future. So I wonder what you think about that. Do you support the Sons of Liberty coming into New York and destroying James Rivington's printing press? Mr. Rivington and his family, by the way, have left New York now out of fear. They've left New York. I think the last I heard they were on their way to England for some time. I don't know if they'll be back, but I think this is an outrage. My dog Rex says, I see a massive desired censorship all over YouTube chat. If you aren't praising people, they'd rather that you don't speak at all. Well, I think unfortunately that people have a tendency to want to stop people from speaking who don't support them. Um, I think it's happened throughout history. I think it's not so different in your time as it is in my time, that people do not like people they disagree with to be able to speak. And I didn't grow up that way. We all were encouraged to have ideas in my house, as Mr. Q's house, but some people aren't like that. And I'm not going to say that there aren't people on the king's side that aren't just as brutal about wanting to stop opinions against the crown. So we have this intolerance and brutality coming from both sides here in 1775. So I don't know what's going to happen to Mr. Rivington if he'll ever be back. I think things here will continue to deteriorate until something happens, and I don't know what that will be. But it is a sad thing that Mr. Rivington is no longer here, because Mr. Q and I did enjoy reading his articles and having a good laugh over them, at our morning breakfast. The paper would be there. There were even people, most of the printers make their income by subscriptions, and many of the subscriptions go out by horseback. They go out with the mail, and they are delivered to the various subscribers. So they, arrive at your home in the morning. And some of Mr. Rivington's subscribers are all the way up throughout the Hudson Valley. Some are in Connecticut, some are on Long Island. They're all around. They're in New Jersey, Staten Island. And it was said that these characters were going around and stealing those newspapers and burning them so the subscribers couldn't get them, which meant the subscribers were canceling their subscriptions. This was happening to Mr. Holt as well, I should say, as Mr. Holt put an advertisement in his paper pleading with people to stop stealing them because he was losing his subscriptions, which were so necessary to his ability to operate. So we have a little of this on both sides. So we would get our paper in the morning from Mr. Rivington and have our breakfast and have a wonderful time reading our opponents and what they had to say. I mean, to Mr. Q and me, that was very entertaining in the morning. And we would try to figure out who the writers of those articles were. So now we are denied that. We are denied that by people supposedly on our own side. Supposedly by people on our own side. So Mr. J had something interesting to say. He said he had his doubts about the people who did this and that they really were on our side, as their activities now have tarnished our movement for independence. And Mr. J has said this in the past, you may recall, where he warned the Sons of Liberty about some of their more outrageous adventures. And he said it does our cause no purpose, because who wants to, associate with, lawless people like this, who make people afraid to even walk the streets or be afraid to be in their own homes. He says this does more to harm our cause than to help our cause. And then he warned and said that some of the people advocating this may actually be agents of the crown, which I'm sure Mr. Sears would be outraged to hear Mrs. Q accuse him of possibly being an agent of the crown. I wonder about that, Mr. Sears. Well, he would have to speak to Mr. Q about that, because, it's not right to confront a lady about what she has to say. Although Mr. Sears, I don't know if he has the manners to resist confronting a lady, but we'll see what happens to everyone as a result of this occasion. So I just wanted to thank all of you for joining me with this story about suppression of free speech coming from December 4th of 1775, 250 years ago, the same issues that we see in the year 2025. And we see these same issues because human nature does not change. And that is why we study history. So I hope you all enjoyed this. I hope you'll join me Sunday night on republicbroadcasting.org for my Sunday night show at 9 p.m., where I'm going to be talking about that group of people called the Founding Fathers. And how did we decide which fathers are founding fathers? And how did we decide who got left out? It's a very interesting story about the Founding Fathers and how we view that, not in 1775, but 2025. So I hope you'll join me. That's republicbroadcasting.org, 9 p.m. Eastern Time on Sunday. And if you miss it, you can find it in the archives. So thank you all very much for joining me. I hope you have a lovely week, and I will see you again next Thursday, and we'll see what's going on. What will it be? December 11th, 1775. We'll see what's happening. Thank you very much, and have a lovely night.